We are moving right along, and we're going into the substance of the conference. In just a second, I first wanted to thank, though, Lara Wolf and all our amazing team for making the project happen. And Lara stands right back there. Say hello, please, and let's give you a round of applause. Thank you so much, Lara, for making these kinds of discourses possible. So we really appreciate it. And there's not many chances to acknowledge all the labor that goes into these kinds of projects, and this is one, so thank you. I want to share with you briefly the reason why I'm excited about the conference, which has something to do with this image here. This is a still from the National Anthem video by Lana Del Rey, which she helped direct, and so it is an image that reminds me of various aspects of transparency. To me, the fundamental aspect of transparency is right here, is in the light itself of this image. So if we have full transparency, that means we can see everything. That's the theory. But it's its own contradiction, because if we can see everything, there is no signal anymore. A signal is a difference between something that's visible and something that's invisible. It's a difference between something that's audible and something that's inaudible. So there is a topology of transparency that makes this very image here transparent in some areas, like the number one, and not transparent in other areas, like the black hair or the red roses. Those are not as transparent as the image is where it's all white and where the light just shines through the image. And so we have differences in transparency that produce the very image itself, that create a signal in the first place. And that is perhaps best shown at this point here, where there's a contrast between the white background and the black hair. But transparency also concerns things like blurry effects here, where the light sort of shines through and there is no form being revealed. What is being revealed, however, is the optics of the apparatus that produces the image. So we have the lens flare there that tells us something about the fact that this photograph has been taken with a camera. And so in transparency, the medium reveals itself. It's not just that transparency produces awareness of some piece of information, but the medium by which the information is delivered reveals itself. And yet there are parts of the medium, for that to happen, there are parts of the medium where the medium shows its own failure. As for example, in this edge down here, I don't mean the electrical socket, I mean the edge between the black image frame and the dust and the red. And that shows us that the image is showing the medium at its limitation. It says, here is where the medium ends, and here is where the system of reproduction fails. And so that's where transparency tells us something about what the medium cannot do. And that is also part of the topology of transparency. And so therefore, I would call transparency a meta-medium, a medium that talks about the medium itself. In the name of full transparency, I want to mention that these proceedings here are video recorded, but the workshop is not. The workshops in the afternoon, which I'm really excited about, are not mediated in any sense because they're private. And so by making a decision about what is private and what is public, what is online and what is not online, we make a statement. We say something about how we wish the conference to work. We say something about how our institution is working. And so transparency can communicate, in itself, can communicate something about who we are, and therefore it is its own medium as well. So we shouldn't expect transparency to do things automatically and blindly, but we should be able to look at transparency as a very nuanced way to describe a very complex sets of information and the relationships between the information and the institution that produces that information. So it's a really rich subject, and I'm really excited to talk about it in more detail and learn much more about it. And I want to see if the notion that the medium is a meta-medium, if that notion actually stands. I don't know if we'll get into that, but that's my question for today. Can transparency be considered a meta-medium? I also want to mention one other thing, which is that my Art 26 film and video class is here to document some of our activities. And I want to welcome you all and thank you for coming. And look forward to looking at your diverse reflections on the conference as another way of making transparency happen. So the whole point is that we get to see the conference from multiple points of view in media, not just the one that's on the internet right now. With those words, I think we're done, and we're going to start our actual set of keynotes. And it's my great pleasure to introduce my colleague from the University of California, Davis School of Law, Anupam Chander. Anupam Chander is a really important participant in various activities here at Berkeley through the CITRIS network. So UC Davis is a sister school to Berkeley through CITRIS. And we're very excited to welcome him. He's a lawyer, and we talked about this conference, and I realized right away that without Anupam's participation, this conference would be incomplete because he is an expert on international law. And one of the big concerns we have is that notions of transparency in the United States are so different from notions of transparency in Europe and in China and in other countries. And so there is no one transparency. There are many different ones, and they all have different borders and issues. And I trust Anupam entirely to guide us through this problem, because he used to practice as a lawyer, I believe, in Hong Kong, and he is now directing the Center for International Law at UC Davis. Please help me welcome Anupam Chander.